Hello, and welcome to the Sparta Group podcast. We aim to provide you with up-to-date interviews and debate with opinion leaders in the health, well-being, rehabilitation and mental health space, from our studio or from conferences.
Hello, my name is Steve Bennett from Sparta. Welcome to the latest in our question and answer sessions with Dr. Sandi Mann, Senior Psychology Lecturer at the University of Central Lancashire, expert workplace consultant, author of several books on psychology and human potential, who runs her own private clinic and is clinical psychology lead for Sparta Health. Hello again, Sandi.
Hello, Steve. Well, I'm really looking forward to this session.
We've had some exciting exchanges the last couple, haven't we? So they've been really good.
The way they sort of go off and take a life of their own, I think we were saying it's like a bit like being down the pub with a beer, but without the beer, and just chatting and musing, and it's good, it's fun.
Please don't mention the word beer. I'm missing it.
Well, yeah. After this, go pour yourself a beer.
Yeah, it's not the same as being down the bar with your mates, is it? And your pals. But that will come. That will come.
Yeah, it will come.
Okay. Well, the subject that I want to try and tease out of you today is one of my favourites because it's got quite a bit of background to it. It's all about the power of energy, the role that energy of thoughts plays in attracting more positive or negative states in our life. And obviously, I'll get on to ask you about how thought energy is scientifically recognized as a powerful means. But there's a few things I wanted to just throw out there, things that I discovered from research in my book. I wrote a section just about the power of energy, and I have to say it was one that captivated me and you'll see why when I tell you about it. I don't know whether you've heard of somebody called Masaru Emoto, a Japanese scientist. Basically, he did some scientific research. Initially, when like any new scientist that comes up with something new, they tend to get poo-pooed initially. But then when other scientists get the same results from the same experiments, they begin to realize that there is more to it. Now, bearing in mind the importance of this, our human body is made up, a large percentage is water. So like they say, 70% plus is water. Well, what he wanted to discover was the importance of water and whether it carried any energy. So what he did was he froze distilled water, 3 sections in three pieces, and he looked at them under 3 separate microscopes. So you got frozen distilled water. But he did something really strange. The first one, he just left unaffected and he looked at it. And I've got images of this in my book, and it shows a very nice crystalline image under the microscope. Under the second one, he actually spoke to the piece of water. Sounds ridiculous. He actually said, "What a ridiculous example of water you are. You're being defamatory." And the whole substance of the water crystal under the microscope changed dramatically. And then they looked again at a third one where he was complimentary. And this third example, again, looked very beautiful and was almost in recognition of the compliments that he was receiving. Now, people thought he was mad. And when I first read about it, I thought, that's crazy. That sounds like Prince Charles talking to plants. But
yeah,
again,
I was going to say, it's like plants. They've got this theory about plants.
Exactly. Well, what they did, they repeated the exercise because this happened 20 plus years ago. They've repeated the exercise again and again and again across different countries by different scientists, and they've found the same results. They're not quite absolutely sure about it, but there's another example. Have you heard of a gentleman called Christian Huygens?
No.
Christian Huygens. Now, you'll know the principle of this when I explain it. Christian Huygens invented the pendulum clock. Now, when he invented one, that was fine. But then when he created his second and his third and his fourth and his fifth, and he positioned them all around his laboratory, he set them all swinging at different levels. Within the hour, they were all resonating at the same level. They were all ringing at the same level. Now, it's believed that was due to something called sympathetic resonance. Now, again, the example is if you've got 2 grand pianos in a room, And if you strike the C note on one and go over to the other piano, you'll find the C note on that piano is also reverberating. And that's been repeated again and again and again. Now, what I'm talking about with energy here and where it's most applicable is the fact that human biology tells us that our body is full of energy and it's full of water that's affected by all of those things. Another example that they gave, particularly relevant, only relevant to women, was that if there are two women living in the same household, their menstrual cycles coincide.
I was thinking that when you said that. I was thinking that
those examples. I've spoken to loads of people, and they say that this is a sympathetic resonance that's occurring. So if you look up sympathetic resonance, there's whole theses on it and whole subjects on it.
I know about the menstrual, the periods. You know, you can get schools and dormitories of women, and they all start syncing together, and flatmates. It's a weird one, isn't it?
Bizarre, isn't it? But my question, I suppose, having spilled all of that out, is thought energy is the thing that I'm interested in, and is it scientifically recognized as a powerful means of attracting positive states or negative states into our life? I'm not necessarily talking about the power of attraction and all that there's so much hype about, but is there any scientific basis to the power of thought creating different states and attracting different events in our life?
Very interesting stuff. Have you ever read any stuff by Richard Wiseman, who is a social psychologist who writes a lot about lucky people and the psychology of luck? And I think this kind of relates to what you're saying about the idea that are lucky people actually luckier? If you believe you're going to win the lottery, are you more likely to win the lottery? You know, can you have that energy that actually changes things and makes things happen? I have read his stuff. I can't quite remember now. You'll have to go and read it. But, you know, what his conclusions were. I think the idea is that people who think they're lucky, it's not that they are no luckier than anybody else. And you're no more likely to win the lottery if you think you're going to than if you don't think you're going to. But luckier people behave differently. And I think this is what you're kind of alluding to, positive energy. People with that positive energy, positive outlook, people who think they're lucky or they're blessed or that they're fortunate or whatever it is, behave differently. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, for example, people who think they're lucky will say things like, I'm so lucky, I'm really lucky. For example, I had a chance encounter with somebody and that led to a job. You know, they say things like that and they put it down to luck. But actually, if you look at the psychology of how lucky people behave, they are more open to experiences. They're more likely to have those chance encounters because they probably talk to more people, because they're more open, that they see everybody as a potential interesting person. So they'll go to a coffee shop in the days when we used to do that, and they'll smile at people, they'll have a bit of a banter, and that's more likely to lead to those so-called chance encounters. So lucky people are lucky because they are more open to risks and experiences, and they're more likely to bring those opportunities into their lives. So my feeling is that it's not a kind of mysterious energy at play, although it might be, but I think it's our thoughts can change the way we behave, which can become that self-fulfilling prophecy.
Which goes back to the perception cycle that we talked about in an earlier.
Exactly. So that's why people with a positive outlook who think that things go well for them tend to rate their lives more positively. So, you know, if you get two people, they could have had the same experiences, exactly the same experiences. And one person will say, look how lucky I am. It's a bit like glass half empty, half full. Look how lucky I am. And the other person's got exactly the same experiences and says, look how unlucky I am. Because it's the way we see them, the way we perceive them. Yeah. You know, it's somebody who's been very, I've got clients, you know, who've been very badly injured in accidents or whatever. You know, one person will say, oh, it's terrible, I can't do this anymore and I'm so unlucky. Another person with the same injuries, I'm so lucky I survived this terrible thing and I'm so lucky that I lived. You know, it's how you see things.
Perception again, isn't it? When you talk about the subject of luck, that brings to mind quotations. I mean, I think it was Henry Ford who was once said of him, you've been very blessed with a lot of luck in your life. You had a lot of luck. He said, you know, it's funny. The harder I worked, the luckier I got. And I thought that just about sums it up. You know what I mean? You know, you do attract more as a result of the nature of the nature of the being, the way you are. So it's fascinating.
I was going to say Henry Ford is actually a very interesting character, because as well as saying things like that, he also was famous for, I mean, he automated the car industry in terms of people, turning people sort of into kind of robots, or automating the work they did. And one of the other things that he was famous for, completely off track here, is that he didn't like people smiling or laughing in the workplace. He was very, very anti that kind of behavior, and said, you come to work, and work and play should be completely separate, and no banter, no laughing. And he would fire people for laughing or smiling. So, interesting character.
I've read his autobiography, and I've read Andrew Carnegie and Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
Edison and Ford were best friends. You see photographs of them sitting on the porch together. And their other best friend was a guy called Michelin, who was the tyres man, because obviously the tyres ended up being supplied to the cars. One last piece on energy that I wanted to talk about was, you can be in a downbeat mood, if you like, and you walk into a room that's full of excited, passionate people, and your mood lifts. By conversely, if you're in a very happy, upbeat mood and you walk into a room where everybody's downbeat, it's difficult to fight the energy, to go down with them, to be down negative with them. And I wonder, if there is any scientific basis to that. I mean, it's something we've all experienced and we all feel it. And, you can, one person can have a positive effect on you. A person can light up a room with their enthusiasm and their excitement and their vibrancy. Yet there's another person who makes you want to run for the lift because they're so negative or so dull. And you think, no, I've got to go, So it's those energy levels that really, is it energy or is it a combination of people's vibrancy? I don't know.
Well, there's a theory for this. There's a theory
okay.
for most of the things you say. There's a theory for. There's a theory for this called the emotional contagion theory, and it's simply saying that emotions are contagious, and we do catch emotions in the same way that we catch a yawn, or hopefully not, but in the same way we might catch COVID or Corona.
Oh,
They're
dear.
very contagious. They're hopefully more contagious than Corona, and generally it can be better for us than Corona. But emotions are very contagious, and we don't necessarily know how, but we probably can imagine. But there's a theory about why. The theory being that from our evolutionary perspective, when we had these kins and clans, and it was very important to affiliate with a group, it was probably very important for your sense of belonging to a group that your emotions or energy levels, whatever you want to call it, weren't out of sync with everybody else's. So you would probably be rejected from a group if everybody in that group was mourning the loss of somebody and you came in all bouncy and happy and cheerful. You might be rejected from that group in your evolutionary past, and that would actually affect your survival. So we probably had a basic human need to catch emotions of other people, to be able to read them, notice them, and adapt to those emotional or energetic states so that we fitted in. Fitting in is a really important human basic need. We talked about needs at a different podcast, but that affiliation helped us survive when we needed to survive in groups. So that's the why of it, but the how is probably to do with perception. It's simply, the same way that emotions happen in the first place. We perceive something, we evaluate it, we have an emotion in order to prepare us for a response. That's what emotions are there for. Every emotion has a purpose. So when we're noticing other people's emotions, we capture that in order to have the response to act in a similar way to everybody in our kin, in our group, in our clan, so that we're not rejected from them. Because if we're on our own in the desert, in our evolutionary past, we wouldn't have survived.
That's fascinating. It really is. It's in one of my past lives, I was a police officer, and I was elevated to the rank of detective, and I had to go on an interview development course. And one of the things they taught us on there was something called mirroring. To build rapport with your subject, you mirror what they're doing. And you see that in relationships often. You look at a couple sitting on a park bench, and the man will copy what the woman does in facial characteristics, in movements. And it's rapport building, isn't it? It's all about rapport and building communication and bringing yourself closer and fitting, as you say, fitting in.
It works in all sorts of relationships, that, and all sorts of ways. That's a very common phenomenon, not just romantic relationships, but also people that you're friends with. And one of the things I'm really interested in as well with that, with mirroring and emotional contagion, is whether it still works by Zoom. Do we still catch emotions as much by Zoom? Do we have to be physically in the room? Do we still mirror? It's very interesting, and it's very early on, but it'd be great to do some research in that. What do you think?
I don't think it does. I think there is something about human interaction and being face to face with another human being.
We're still face to face. We're still face to face, Steve.
You are, but there's an energy that passes between the two of you when you are actually humanly together that I believe is obstructed by this computer screen.
It's interesting because I do all my therapy now or teletherapy remotely, and I object to this idea of face-to-face not being by Zoom or not being remote, because we're still face-to-face. And in fact, I think we're more face-to-face than we are in a room, but we're not in person. So I use that distinction of face-to-face versus in person. I'm finding teletherapy working brilliantly and really, really effective. But I still think you might be right. I'm not saying you're not right. I still think that it probably does miss something. And perhaps what we have to do is work much harder with remote face-to-face than we do in person. So we have to work much harder to pick up those cues. And the other problem, which might address what you've noticed, is there's often a bit of a lag. So that can mean that the facial expressions and the body language don't exactly match what's being said. So that might account for what you're saying is that human connection. Maybe that's something to do with it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I personally, I love the new Zoom facilities and the new Microsoft Teams facilities. I love all of that. But I see it as an additional means for communication with others. And I would hate to see it become going back to the Faith Popcorn report of years ago, when she said that we would all become insular and we'd all become locked into our own houses and we'd all be communicating with each other by this sort of means. And we'd only ever have food delivered. We wouldn't go to shops. We wouldn't have a social interaction. I've spoken to shop assistants ridiculously in supermarkets who have said, we've missed the number of customers that we used to have. We've missed the interface that we have. But what we have found is that the fewer customers that we're seeing, we've got a higher quality of interface with them now, because everybody else, high volume, bang, 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 next customer, please, next customer. Now they've got time for a chat again.
Do you know what would be really interesting, Steve? Because we've never met in person, you and I.
No.
Although we've met a lot remotely. It would be really interesting to see what would happen. Somebody should video us, if and when we ever get to meet in person over that drink in the club,
or on that park bench in Salford, 2 meters apart.
Yeah. No, but a real interaction. I mean, even that's not the same, is it? You've got to be conscious of your distance. But those real old-fashioned interactions when you didn't have to worry about that sort of thing. Would it be different? Would we connect more? Would it be awkward because we're not used to that? Would it be a better quality interaction? It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
I'm a handshaker. Yeah, everywhere I go, I'm shaking people's hands, and I miss that terribly.
I'm quite a touchy-feely person.
Hugging, this sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm very in that, and I don't know. It'll be a long time till we do that, but what we've got here with us is quite a unique situation, because most people who are interacting by remote already know each other. They've already had all those in-person interactions, and then moved to remote. But we're in a situation where we've not. I'm not saying it's unique, but we're in a situation where we've not actually ever met in person. So it's the other way around. Most people, they've done all the in-person stuff and now they're doing it, remotely. So it'd just be interesting to see what would be like, and how it would be different, and whether if we actually sat together interacting, we'd say, this is much better, or whether we'd say, no, I prefer you when you're on the screen. I could just press the button and switch you off.
I can imagine you saying, Steve, your breath stinks. I'd rather have you on the other side of a camera.
There you go.
Anyway, that brings the power of energy to a close. Thank you so much for today's contributions, Sandi. They've all been fascinating. The last one, power of energy, was particularly interesting. Great to hear your input on it. And I look forward to the next time that we can get together and I can throw more questions at you.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be in person for a while, but
no. Okay. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. And
you take care, Steve.
Yeah,
Speak
take
to you
care.
soon.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
At Sparta Group, we are keen to hear your thoughts about the topics discussed today. So please tweet us at Sparta_health or visit our website for more information and support.